Hello everyone, Season 5 DPS tier list. Let's get started. I'd like to start the tier list with the recently changed character. It's going to be Mei. I would put Mei in the top of B tier, which is a good character. You still have a lot of utility to trap the enemy tank, you still have the ability to slow and help your team. But as a solo carry character, it feels like Mei is falling off due to the 50% reduction in her left click and inability to get and secure kills. It's not as easy as it was before. She's still playable, you can absolutely make her work, but feels like B is just the top of her potential at the moment. Very easily counterable by better meta characters. So yeah, B tier is where she belongs. Up next, we have Sombra, and this is gonna be very counterintuitive, but I feel like Sombra is really good when you take her in the higher skill level lobbies, but when she goes into metal ranks, you can actually see her potential falls off, simply because it's all about your understanding of positioning, understanding of the situation. I often see that players are going for health packs that are far away from the teammates and opponents, and they just hack them thinking that they are useful. But just like in chess, if you don't have good moves, it doesn't mean that you have to play bad ones. So Sombra is going to be a really good character in the current meta, simply because she's a nice counter to pretty much every single dive tank except probably Winston, and an absolute horror to play against when she is really good. Up next we have Soldier, and it feels like the character is going in a good spot. I feel like Soldier is stronger than Mei in some situations, but still there are just characters that absolutely counter Soldier, and there is nothing he can do about it. Simply because you really wanna track your opponents, but how can you track a character like Ashe? How can you track a character like Cass? How can you track a character like Hanzo, who are just peeking around the corner for a few seconds just to go back and hide? Even if you pair Soldier with a Mercy Pockets, I feel like it's still not enough to bring value to the table. I feel like Soldier is just not as good as he previously was, so we'll put him in the B tier. Tracer. Without any hesitations, I would put this character in an absolute meta category, simply because even though she's got a slight nerf with 15% more spread, it still feels like there are so many situations and opportunities for you to pop off if you are a mechanically strong Tracer player. I understand the struggle of the newer players or the lower level skill players trying to master her, looking at the dudes who already made it on Tracer, and you're like, how is he doing that? How would you blink, melee and recall and do it so flashy that the whole stadium is like, whoa, this is insane, and you cannot even get a single kill? It's a steep road, but if you have the time and you accept the fact that you will struggle for the first 50 to 100 hours on Tracer, and you'll be smart about your training, this character is going to be your absolute best friend. Up next we have Pharah, and I would put her in the decent tier. Sometimes she is really good against certain comps, just like opponents would play stuff like Junkrat Genji, right? And you would go for Pharah to absolutely counter them, as they have no chance to reach out to you. Or they would go Mei, Genji, or something like this. But in the meta where Echo is being super duper played, in the meta where you have Cass, when you have Ashe, I don't see how you can make Pharah work. She's pretty squishy if you have a good hit scan aim. The character is just pretty bad in the current meta, and there is nothing we can do to save her. Even though I'm a hitscan player, I absolutely love Hanzo. It feels like he is a super duper absolute meta, and if you can land shots on the character, you will become unstoppable. There are so many maps with verticality, so many maps with longer sights, and especially considering the fact that Hanzo is the only character that can headshot with a one-shot at the moment, just makes him super viable option. You will be shocked and amazed if you're a new player and never played Hanzo. You'll be shocked and amazed to see how fun and how exciting it is to get a few double kills, or just a few kills in general, as Hanzo, while not being distracted by like your positioning and stuff. You're just like being chilling on the high ground and shooting your opponents, unlike the Tracer, where you constantly have to be like involved in a fight, or there is a chance that you will be at the risk of dying. Up next we have Torbjorn, and it feels like the character is just very simple yet effective against most of the DPS, tanks and supports. You can stand your own ground, you can be self-sufficient, and if you know the turret spots, you are an absolute unstoppable machine. The only characters you will have problems against are probably going to be Hanzo. You are absolutely counter Tracer, you are countering Sombras, you are countering stuff like Cass and Ashe, due to the fact that they are very clunky and Ashe has to stay in one place a lot, so you can like spam your left click, and Cassidy is just a very spooky little individual that you can catch lacking pretty easily. Reaper, I would put him in a D tier due to the fact that they nerfed him to the ground and now you cannot shift away pretty much from anything. And you might say, oh Chris, but Hanzo is not countering Reaper anymore simply because he cannot like one tap him, right? You can still one tap Reaper because he's probably not gonna be full HP, but if he will be full HP, you can just headshot and melee, and this guy is gonna be dead. So Reaper is going to be a niche pick. Pretty cool to play, pretty fun, but still pretty bad. Widowmaker goes into a niche pick. She went from being an absolute meta to like one of the worst characters in the game with a recent nerf, and it's really interesting. I love it, and it definitely changes the meta on certain maps such as Havana, Junkrat, and players are going for a different approach, and I absolutely love it. But at the same time, I enjoyed playing Widow myself, so it's kind of a massive letdown. You can still play her, absolutely can still play her, but she is just a fraction of the power she possessed before. Ashe is going to be a really good pick in the current meta. I recently did 20-hour Ashe challenge and I was absolutely popping off. Ashe is really good against Reaper, Ashe is really good against Mei, Ashe is really good against Soldier, Ashe is really good against Torb. The fact that Widow got nerfed and Widow was the worst Ashe enemy makes her so much more playable in the current meta, and if you can land your shots, again, she is going to be your best friend. Cassidy. I have very mixed feelings about this character. In terms of his recent changes, it feels like he goes into a really good tier, but he's gonna be at the low end, so he's like good slash really good. Simply because against certain tanks, he's just not working properly. Yes, you can cancel Junkrat Queen ult. Yes, you can cancel Doomfist movement. Yes, you can cancel... what else you can cancel? Yes, you can cancel Winston's movement, but the nade, it feels like it's just so much balance that sometimes you will have a hard time sticking Hamster, you will have a hard time sticking pretty much anyone, due to the fact that it's not really accurate and pretty slow when it comes to the chase. So I would say that Cassidy is going to be a really good tier, but at the end of it, still, you can find value. Of course, if you play Sombra Cassidy into Doomfist, of course Doomfist is gonna struggle quite tremendously against you. Going for Symmetra, as it is a really strong and good character. Of course, there is time and place for her, and you want to take her on control of the point maps, where you can literally teleport your whole team straight to the point and get an advantage in that regard. Symmetra is really strong and she has one of the best ultimates in the game. If you can charge up your laser, you become an unstoppable power, even stronger than the Zarya with 100 energy. It feels like, I still feel like she belongs in an A tier with the potential to be in S tier if you manage to learn how to play her. Bastion is going in a niche pick. Really good against Reinhardt, really good against Wrecking Ball, I'd suspect really good against Roadhog, but these characters are rarely being played in the current meta. Really good against Winston as well, but there are certain characters that absolutely counter you. So If you're playing Bastion and they swap Diva, GG. You are just not gonna be as useful as you were before. Sigma, same story. Ramatra is also pretty good against Bastion. So you would play this character to counter an enemy tank, but almost every single character in the tier list counters you. Tracer counters you, Hanzo counters you, Ashe counters you, like Cass counters you. Like there is just nothing you can do. Sombra counters you, and you are just left alone crying in your bed when you're playing Bastion. Rest in peace. Oh, I wish they would buff this character and obviously nerf Genji. Up next we have Sojourn, and it feels like the character is just straight up bad. I understand that you can absolutely pop off on her, and the right click is potentially really strong, especially paired up with the Mercy Pocket, but again, it's just all about wasted potential. It's all about you being able to take Hanzo and be at the safe distance and just pew 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 enemies, but you are just going for Sojourn and making your life really hard. It feels like she still has time and place in some dive comps, but I usually never see this character played at any ranks. So yeah, well deserved C tier for the Sojourn. Junkrat goes for a niche pick. Jesus Christ, man. This character is very easily counterable, but in the right hands, it is a massive problem to play against him. It feels like almost every single character above has the opportunity to absolutely counter Junkrat, and there is nothing we can do about it. You can still play him in a few maps with like closed rooms, with close quarters, where you can spam your thingies, when you can hold corners, when you can get the value with your traps, but in reality, you just take Echo and the Junkrat experiences some massive problems. You take Hanzo and you almost never see this person in your line of sight, but you still get one-tapped in the head all the time. So Junkrat goes into a D tier for the Season 5. Next up we have Benji, and it feels like Benji with a recent buff where they upped his bullets from 24 to 30 goes into a good tier. I can see that a good Genji player can counter hitscan characters. A good Genji player is really good against most of the characters below here, whether it's gonna be Junkrat, whether it's gonna be Bastion, whether it's gonna be a Widow, and with the recent nerfs, of course, he is pretty strong. Still very playable, especially in ranked, where people have no idea how to counter him, and with the recent Mei nerfs, Genji is gonna be at the pinnacle of his power, it feels like, with the recent seasons, because he was down bad for a very long time. Hopefully he's gonna be played more. And last character we have here is going to be Echo. It feels like Echo is going to be an absolute really good really good character with the potential to be an S tier. You are countering most of the characters here. You are being a big problem to Pharah, you are being a big problem to Torb, you are a big problem to Sombra, Symmetras, as they just cannot really do anything against you. You're really good against Hanzo, you're really good against Tracer, you're really good against Reaper, Junkrat, Bastion, even Genji can be like at the risk of dying simply because you can bring him to half HP and beam him to death. Echo requires a lot of skill, I understand that, but if you'll manage to learn her, she is going to be an absolute disaster for the enemy team, whether you are going for a silent assassin playstyle or you are frontlining with a Mercy Pocket. Thank you very much for watching the video. Let me know in the comment section if you agree or disagree with the current list. See you in the next one. Take care.